Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we are basically going to build the get domain name function which we have right over here. So the reason for building a separate function for this is because right now we are basically checking in the URL, that is the URL which we have passed along with the domain name, and the URL is actually going to be like if you say www.facebook.com, then that's going to be your URL, and the domain name is just Facebook, so you only want that. So what this function is actually going to do is that it's actually going to take the entire URL, and it's actually going to take only the middle word from it as the name. So what we are going to do is that we are going to create a new function, but we are not going to create that in this file. Instead, we are going to create a new file for this. So what we will do is that we will create a new Python file. So simply right click over here, go to new Python file, and let's name this file as, let's say, domain. So let's type in domain over here, hit OK. And once this file is created, you could go ahead and create this function over here. But what you need to do is that you need to make sure that you import everything from domain so that this error goes away. So you simply need to type in from domain import star, and star basically means import everything. Now you need to jump onto this domain file, and here you actually need to import a few things. So first thing which you need to import is the URL parse. So you type from urllib.parse import URL parse, and once you have imported this, the next thing which you need to do is that you actually need to create the get domain name function. So what this function does is that it's actually going to get the domain name. So let's type in def get domain underscore name, and this is actually going to accept URL as the parameter because we will be working with URL. And now let's surround the code with try catch block to avoid errors. So we will store the result in some results variable. So we type results equals, and what we are going to do is that we are going to make one more function which is to basically get the subdomain. So we type this is equal to get subdomain, let's say get subdomain name, and let's pass in URL to this. Now let's go ahead and actually split the entire result. So what I mean by split is that if you talk about any URL that is going to be www.websitename.com, so what we need to do is that we need to split those words which are separated by a dot operator. So in order to do that, you simply type in dot split and mention by what you want to split. So we want to split those things depending upon a dot, so we give a dot over there. And then finally what we need to do is that we need to return the results. So we type return, and then you type in results, and in the index you specify -2, so that's going to actually return the results 2 positions back. Then you type plus, and then again give a dot over here, and then specify results and 1 position back. So that's basically going to return the result which we want. And to basically accept the error, we type accept, and we want to return nothing over here, so we return blank over here. Now let's go ahead and create this get subdomain name function as well. So we type def get subdomain name, and this function is actually going to get the subdomain name from the URL. So what we do is that first we make sure that this thing accepts a URL, and once it does that, let's also surround the code in try catch block, and that is actually going to return URL pass. So it's actually going to pass the URL which we want, and then type in netlog over here. And in case of exception, we do the same thing, that is we absolutely return nothing. So we type return and leave this space as blank. So make sure that you have a colon here as well, and I guess I forget a plus sign over here. Okay, so once this thing is done, we are pretty much done creating the get domain name function and get subdomain name function. So this is basically the code which we use to extract the core domain name so that we could compare the domain name with the URL's domain name. So that's the main significance of creating these two functions. So we have already used this function over here so as to basically compare the spider's domain name with the domain name of a URL. So that's it for this lecture, and in the next lecture what we are going to do is that we are going to write in the final code to execute our crawler. So we are going to make a final Python file called as main.py, and we are basically going to start writing the final code. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.